Doja Cat is truly an enigma, a part of a category of a dying breed of artists, honestly. I don't consider myself a music snob, but for you to make my stand list these days, you really have to bring something to the table, something that makes me unable to ignore you. Most of my favorite artists debuted before the 2010s, and I'm not saying that no one that debuted after that hasn't got my attention. I mean, Ariana Grande is one of my favorite artists of all time. But as time went on, it became harder and harder for me to find artists that really grab my attention, hold it, and make me fall in love with them. So in 2020, at the height of quarantine, mind you, when I saw a rap girl giving us bars, vocals, pop hits, and choreography, it was something that immediately had me out of my seat. Doja's rise to prominence during her hot pink era really showed me that this girl is a multifaceted threat. I have always put Doja in a category of a dying breed of artists, a remnant of an era where artists were consistently pushing the bar in their music and their performances. Not just a rapper, she's a bona fide pop star who has the pen and outstanding range to back it up. Hot Pink was a masterpiece in a very similar vein to Nicki Minaj's Pink Friday, a medley of pop and hip-hop that was the perfect mixture that arguably hadn't been seen since Nicki achieved it 9 years prior to Hot Pink. And with its masterfully executed follow-up, Planet Her, Doja's upward trajectory only continued as she firmly planted herself into that sweet spot of crossover appeal that so many artists strive for but lack the versatility to achieve. Doja Cat had become a bona fide pop star before our very eyes, and it was very, very pleasing to me to watch. I remember one of my friends showing me the Moo video for the first time 5 years ago and thinking, oh, haha, that's funny and cute. But if you had told me that that same girl would be one of the biggest artists out right now, I would have laughed in your face. I say all of this to say that I'd forgotten how it felt to discover an artist, fall in love with them and their artistry, and watch them blow up in real time. If you watch my series on Nicki Minaj, you know that I mentioned that Nicki's third studio album, The Pink Print, was in some ways a direct response to her detractors that claimed that Nicki wasn't a real rapper because of her prominence in the pop space. It's so interesting because I've only just realized that Doja's discography and career has followed the same trajectory as Nicki. An album that was a blend of pop and hip-hop, followed by an album that leaned more heavily into pop. And then we get to the album that denounces pop in favor of pure hip-hop, the album that silences all the naysayers. Doja Cat's fourth studio album, Scarlet, is that album. It's hard to talk about this album without talking about Doja's antics leading up to the album's release. At the time of a lot of her seemingly bizarre and oftentimes confusing behavior, I just wrote it off as Doja being Doja, and as a fan, a lot of the things that she said did frustrate me. But looking back at it after this album's release and knowing the type of person that Doja is, it makes sense. I don't want to call it a publicity stunt or a ploy to build hype for the album because I think that has a negative connotation to it. But it was obvious that Doja wanted to establish the tone of this era long before she even dropped the first single. Things were different this time around, and I just think she wanted to be very committed to proving that point in ways that riled people up and made the world talk. The tone of Scarlet and this current era of Doja Cat really has its beginnings back during the Planet Her era. Doja had reached a new peak in her career, becoming one of the it girls of the industry, and when you become an it girl, the world demands a lot of you. She was everywhere during this period, performances, appearances, and the like, and a lot of these were at the height of a quarantine. She was understandably growing tired of the overexposure, the constant criticism, and just the overwhelming burden of being a pop star, and Doja made it known to the world, even threatening to quit music at one point. It's no secret that Doja is something of an online troll. Her brand of humor doesn't always line up with mine, but regardless, I very rarely took anything she said seriously. I didn't think she would actually quit music, but the frustration and exhaustion was obviously real. Then came her denouncing pop music, saying she's done with it, and even calling Hot Pink and Planet Her quote-unquote cash grabs. And then probably the biggest rant of them all, her insulting her own fan base. At this point, it was obvious that she was trying to start her own Doja Cat is over party, but why? Well, if you ask me, I think it was a part of the act. It's a part of the era. Taking inspiration from Eminem's Slim Shady and Nicki's Roman Zelensky, Scarlet is the alter ego adopted by Doja Cat, which symbolizes rebirth, the reimagination of the self, and the birth of a new creative or new thought or a new way of style. Scarlet serves the same purpose as many other alter egos in music in that they allow an artist to have that sense of escapism, a vein through which they express their truth. Not everything they say is meant to be taken literally, but the feeling is still there. There is some truth to it. Doja doesn't hate pop music or her previous albums, at least I don't think so. Scarlet the album is just so much of an antithesis to everything that came before it that she had to make it known in the most violent way possible, fitting the era's aesthetic. Scarlet was born from a disillusionment with pop music and a rage born from critics who dared to question Doja's validity as a rapper. Doja's shaved head, which will become a symbol of this era undoubtedly, is also an important part of the entire rollout. So much of a woman's identity and desirability is derived from their hair, and Doja shaving it off was a declaration of control. She is no longer concerned with what other people think of her. She's no longer concerned with being desirable or marketable. This time around, she's going to say what she wants to say and do what she wants to do. All the greatest artists have their controversial era, their I don't give a F era, and we're experiencing Doja's right now. Quite frankly, it's hard to hate her when the music is so good and the talent is undeniable. Before I get into the actual album review, the track by track, just wanted to give a reminder of how I do my album rankings because it's been approximately like 6 to 7 months since I've done my last album review. But I go through each track and I give my opinion on it and I give it a rating out of 5 stars, and then at the end I'll give the album an overall score out of 10. Alright, starting the album off on a very high note, we have Paint the Town Red, which sets the tone of the Scarlet era and album perfectly, not to mention being the #1 song in America after most of us swore she was done. You know, that's quite the flex, I might add. A hypnotically addictive beat that uses that Dionne Warwick sample exquisitely. Paint the Town Red is great. I really have no notes. The success speaks for itself. I love this song. It's great. It does its job perfectly. Very catchy, very much a mood, very much a vibe. I gave Paint the Town Red 5 stars. Track 2, we have Demons. I remember when Demons dropped and not a lot of people on the timeline were fond of it, but it seems like most people have come around. I loved it from the first listen though. It's rowdy, it's chaotic, it's intense, it's angry, it's very, very, very Doja Cat. I honestly couldn't see any other rap girl pulling this off like she does. I say that cash cow line at least once a day. I'm the fastest growing girl on all your apps now, like she's not playing with y'all anymore. Every song she dropped from this album prior to its release was a bop to me, and it really, it really set the bar high for what I wanted to, what I was expecting from this album. So Demons is another one of my favorites. I gave it 5 stars. Right, track 3 is Wet Kitty, and yes, I know that's not the actual name of the song, but I need this video to be monetized, so that's what we're calling it today. Anyways, I kind of zoned out during the first 2 songs because, I've heard them so many times, but once this one came on, I got out of my seat like I was moving. I'm moving as I was typing this script and listening to it. This is a bop. I love this one. I'm gonna have it stuck in my head for the next few months. I can already feel it. Very, very, very infectious. So far, Scarlet is 3 for 3. I love this one. I gave this one 5 stars. Alright, track 4, we have F the Girls, FTG. This album is giving exactly what I expected it to give. I really like this one too. She goes pretty hard on this one, not too much to say about it. It's a solid track. I gave it 4 stars. Track 5 is Ouchies. This one made me smile because I just hear so much of female rap history in it. I don't know if that sounds corny, but and like towards the beginning in that verse, I heard a lot of early Nicki vibes from it, and then I also get Kim vibes, and I get Missy vibes from Doja's flow in here as well. I really, really like this one too. I gave Ouchies 4 stars. Track 6 is 97. Okay, I let her have that "What Are Those" bar on Demons, but saying "What Are Those" twice on one album is kind of crazy to me, I'm not gonna lie. But in all seriousness, 97 has a throwback vibe to it. It gives me Lil Wayne vibes at times, honestly. I really like the production on this one. I don't really see myself coming back to it all that often on its own. But if I'm just listening to the album as a whole, yeah, I won't skip it. But yeah, it's good regardless. I loved it. I gave 97 3 stars. Track 7 is Gun. These songs are so short. I had to actually pause the album as I was typing the script because the songs would end as I was, reviewing them, and so I didn't want to get too far ahead. But this one had me moving. I think Doja's vocal production is very underrated. The way she does her backing vocals and layering It always sounds spectacular. This one is a bop. I love the name. It's just very blunt. Gun, like it's like, what are we about to get into? But yeah, I gave this one 4 stars. Track 8 is Go Off. Another bop. Maybe not a standout track on the album, but it's good nonetheless. Her vocals sound great on the hook. Great production as usual. Great bars. Not one of my favorites, but still solid. I gave Go Off 3 stars. Track 9 is Shut Yo. Catchy, not remarkable. It kind of gives me SoundCloud drop vibes, and I don't mean that one way or the other, but I really think that's the vibe she was going for, honestly, knowing Doja Cat. I don't hate it, but I'm not in love with it either. It was the first time that I was kind of like, okay. So I gave this one 2 stars. Track 10 is Agora Hills. This is the second official single from the album, apparently. Very much a vibe. I was indifferent to it at first, but about halfway through the song it hit me. I knew immediately, okay, yeah, I'm gonna have this on repeat. I've already listened to it 3 times, and I've only listened to the album as a whole once, but this song in particular, I've had to listen to it 3 times. I love the dreamy hook. I love the wavy production. This is probably the most pop that we're going to get from this album, and that's totally fine. This one just hit a little too hard for me. Like, I love this one so much. This one honestly wouldn't feel out of place on her last 3 albums. It's very much, it has that classic Doja vibe to it. I love it so much. Definitely in my top 3. I absolutely adore this one. I give Agora Hills 5 stars. Track 11 is Can't Wait. Okay, I'm digging the subtle transition that the album takes. She's eased up on the trash talking, and she's moving into more familiar territory with, songs that are more aimed at love and just I love her. But the songs are starting to sound like things that we've heard before, but not in a bad way. I like the hint of familiarity. It's like the old Doja is still here, but only for a little bit. Like Agora Hills before it, this song sounds like it could have easily been a Planet Her deluxe cut. I liked it. I gave this one 4 stars. Track 12 is Often. Very Erykah Badu coded, right down to the way that she's singing. I'd be shocked if it wasn't intentional. But this one is a vibe. Not one of my favorites, but enjoyable. I gave Often 3 stars. Track 13 is Love Life. I don't hate this one by any means, but I'd be lying if I didn't say I was kind of waiting for it to be over. The verses are top notch though, and I love the throwback vibe. The hook low-key annoyed me though, and this is one of the longer songs on the album, and I'm like, okay, we could have given this extra minute to, I don't know, Agora Hills or, Wet Kitty. We could have given that extra minute to any of the other songs, but not this one. But I gave Love Life 2 stars. Track 14 is Skull and Bones. Again, I love the production on this one. Doja goes really hard in the second verse particularly. I really didn't have any notes for this one. I just really like it. And it transitions perfectly into Attention, which follows it on the track list. I gave Skull and Bones 3 stars. Track 15 is Attention. Attention was the first song released from the album, and while it was just a buzz single, it really did the heavy lifting of a proper lead single as far as getting the public ready for what Doja was coming with this time around. It was a cool reintroduction to Doja after not hearing from her for a while. Attention really established where her head was at. It feels like a song where she had a lot to get off her chest. The song's placement this late into the album kind of confused me though. I was almost sure that it would be the opening song on the album. It just kind of sets the stage perfectly, but regardless, at its current placement, it serves as a reinforcement to what we've already been told throughout this entire album. Doja doesn't care what you think, and it doesn't matter what she does, the public is going to eat it up regardless. Attention, I give it 5 stars. Track 16 is Balut. I hope I'm saying that right. The finale of Scarlet and the last single that she dropped prior to the album's release. It's another one of my favorites. I really vibe with this one. I really dig this one. The production on this album is phenomenal. Balut is this one final reminder that Doja Cat is that girl, whether you like her or not. Copy the greats. That's my number 1 strategy, but beware that you can't copy stats. that line, when I first heard it, I was like, oof, I love it. I just love it so much. She's admitting that she's borrowed from the greats, like many artists do. That's nothing new. But numbers can't be copied. She's saying her success is of her own merit. It's of her own talent. That's hers. And this is a nice little outro. It's very a subtle, a very smooth outro. I love it. But I gave Balut 5 stars. So apparently there's a track 17, the What You Mean freestyle. This one was a surprise because, as far as I know, it wasn't on the track list that she released prior to the album coming out. So I guess it was a real surprise bonus track because it just popped up when the album dropped on streaming. But I like it. It's short. I think it would work better as an interlude rather than an outro, but it ends the album on a hard note, and that's ultimately what Scarlet is all about. Just straight up rap, and yeah, I liked it. It's fun. It's short. I gave it 3 stars. Overall, was Scarlet worth the controversy, the shenanigans, the hype, etc., etc.? I think so, yes. Doja had a very clear end goal with this album, and that was to prove herself and talk her stuff and not take anything from anyone. She's paid her dues. She did the whole pop girl thing. She did the whole it girl thing. She has proven herself, and Scarlet does what Doja set out to do. It's undoubtedly her least commercially friendly release by design, as she's admittedly done with the pop music scene for the time being. But regardless of that, she still has a #1 hit out of this album. That right there is a testimony to talent, in my opinion. It'll take a few more listens to see how I would rank this one against her other albums, but all in all, Scarlet is a solid release. That's going to be on repeat for me for the next few months without a doubt. If you haven't heard it yet, then I would highly recommend it, but I will say that if you're expecting a Doja Cat from previous albums, then you might be in for a bit of a surprise, especially if some of your favorite songs are like Say So and Kiss Me More. There's none of that here. It's more. I can't really describe it. I can't really compare it to anything that she's put out before. But at the same time, it still feels very much like a Doja Cat record through and through. Definitely one of my favorite albums of 2023 already. I give Scarlet by Doja Cat an 8 out of 10.